I'm Natalie and this is James, and this is our home, Zephyr. We have been sailing around the world for the past 4 years, and now we have got a couple of stowaways on board. Meet Flint and Kira, two puppy Weimaraners that are joining the adventure. Subscribe and welcome to our channel, Sailing Zephyr.
Well, welcome everyone. We're here with a really special video that I think you guys have been asking for a long time. This is sort of a video that's going to be taking all of the questions that you guys have had about our living expenses on our sailboat versus living expenses on land. Is it cheaper? Is it more expensive? Are we living much more economically than we would when we were renting a house back in Australia?
Exactly. So we're basing this on the way we live on the boat, which might be different to a lot of people, or it might be the same. And also we're basing it on our lives back in Australia. So our cost of living in Australia, which will be different if you guys are watching from the US or Canada or New Zealand. Like, it's all going to be different.
So we're going to be looking at this as a per month expenditure. Now, this isn't exact science. I'm sure there's going to be some costs that we are going to miss out on both sides of the equation, but we've done our best to try and include everything that we can think of.
I think we have. We sat down and we've really thought about kind of all the categories and expenditures and tried to make the comparison to the way we live now. So let's get right into it. Okay, so first up is rent. We were in the Gold Coast renting a beachfront apartment and we paid about $1,950 a month. Pricey. But it was a really good community. We had all our friends there. It was in a really spectacular place. Yeah. James could surf every morning.
Oh, yeah.
So we felt very fortunate to have that place. And normally they're way more expensive for that kind of apartment. So
yeah, that was expensive for us, but it was a bargain for the area for sure.
Yeah. So compare that to boat life.
Boat life. So, well, we don't pay rent. But that might not be the case for everybody. You might live on your sailboat in a marina full time, in which case you would have a monthly expense. But for us, we live exclusively at anchor with that big fat zero. There are anomalies from time to time, maybe with some bad weather or something forces us into a marina for a night. But we almost live exclusively at anchor, which puts that rent at zero. And that is a huge savings for us.
So a huge difference there, but then when we get into the next category, maintenance, it varies because at the apartment we were renting, so we didn't have any maintenance costs. That came under that was the job of the landlord. So for maintenance for us, we actually had zero costs, whereas on the boat maintenance, we have...
Yeah, we have a lot. I think they say the golden rule is 10% of the boat's value per year in maintenance. It's kind of a sliding scale to me. Our boat is fairly new, so our maintenance costs have been pretty low. But we're kind of averaging about $260 per month in maintenance. Now, we don't necessarily spend that every month. In fact, some months we spend nothing. But then we might have a month where all of a sudden we might spend $1,000, something breaks. Or, for example, what factors mostly into that high price for us, it seems maybe low to other boaters, but for us that's high, is that we include our yearly haul out. So that's taking the boat out of the water, doing any maintenance, a bottom paint, and putting that back in. So that's the haul out and the time in the yard. Usually we spend an average of about 4 days to a week to get that job done, I think.
And it's mostly always done by us, so our costs are very low in terms of workmanship.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So we end up doing most of the work, so really it's just the cost of the haul out and then our week in the marina. We tend to go with cheaper marinas. We really do our research and find the cheapest ones. Mm-hmm. So we'll never go to a super expensive one and do the haul out there, if that makes sense. Up next, huge one is insurance. Now, back home in Australia, we used to have a home and contents insurance, and that worked out per month to be about $45 a month.
Yep.
Versus
insurance on the boat. We've been averaging about $2,200 a year. Our average insurance per month is about $185. So a vast difference.
Huge
compared
difference
to Australia. So,
but that's to be expected, right?
Yeah, there's a higher risk around everything.
All right, up next is our cars. So we had 2 cars in Australia. For this, we've included registration, insurance, and fuel costs for both of our cars. And that worked out to a whopping $515 a month.
Jesus, sounds like a lot.
It does sound like a lot.
Wow.
And it was a lot.
It was a lot.
So versus our car here, which is a dinghy.
What we decided to do was take the fuel costs of the tender and the fuel costs of diesel for the big boat and put that all together as a comparison. We put the costs together, we broke them down into the fuel for the tender, which comes in at about $150 a month. So it's quite high, but we use our tender a lot. And the fuel is quite high for petrol at the moment in the parts of the world we've been in and where we're expecting to be going. And then for the big boat, it's about $75 a month in fuel. And again, that can go up and down, but that seems to be like a good average. So all up, we're looking at about $225 a month for fuel across the board on the big boat and the small boat.
Okay, next category of comparisons is our health insurance. In Australia, we are lucky enough to have free health insurance, so we pay $0 for our health insurance. Versus living on the boat, we pay
more. Obviously, we travel a lot. We go to different countries. We don't know what the health systems are in every country. So we need to look after ourselves. The last thing you want is to be stuck for thousands of dollars if something bad went wrong. So when we broke it all down, we spend about $130 a month between the 2 of us for our health insurance. And that covers us basically globally. We update it wherever we go, but that's about what we spend per month.
All right, next one, we've labeled this one communications. But really it includes our internet and our phones and I guess Netflix back in Australia and all that kind of stuff that we used to have. We spent a total of $160 a month versus on the boat.
Yeah, we spend a lot less. We basically only live on mobile prepaid SIM cards. And that's a tough one. Some places have been really expensive for so little and some have been cheap. But as an average, we spend about $70 for the 2 of us. So
if it's cheap, like it was in Panama, we will end up having a SIM card each. But if it's expensive, like it is here in the Bahamas, then we only tend to get 1 SIM card and then personal hotspot off each other. It really has worked out to be cheaper to do the prepaid SIM cards in every spot you arrive into, every country. It's a little bit more of a hassle because when you arrive, you have to find an internet phone provider and you have to go up, buy the SIM card, but it's worked out really well.
All right, so something we haven't mentioned is we have an Iridium Go. It's a satellite communications device. And there is a hefty cost associated with that, which is about 140 US a month, so I've got almost $200 Australian. But we only ever use it for 1 month at a time and on our 2 Atlantic crossings. So we've used it twice, I think, in 4.5 years. And we will use it again if we do the Pacific or the Atlantic again or the Indian or anything. But we haven't factored that in because it's a one-off cost that we just don't know when it's going to happen, and it only ever gets used for a month.
Okay, one of my favorite ones coming up next is water and electricity. In Australia, we spent about $100 per month on this, and right now we spend $0.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Of course, this is all down to the fact that we have a water maker on our sailboat and gigantic solar panels and batteries. I mean, you could argue the initial cost of putting those things in, but well, most of it was already in when we bought the boat, so the cost wasn't on us, which is fantastic. We make all our own water, we produce all our own electricity, so that's awesome. That's a big saving. $100, that's $1,200 a year we're saving.
Huge.
Straight back into kitty.
All right, up next is our shopping. Groceries. This is a big one, as it is in any household really.
Absolutely.
It's definitely gone up now that we've got the doggos, but I would say we're kind of on par for both costing about the same. So in Australia, we used to spend about $450 on food per month, and right now we're probably spending
not much more. Like Nat said, very similar. We're probably spending about $500 to $550 per month. We bumped that up just a little bit because, like Nat said, we got the doggos now.
Some places have been more expensive than Australia, but then we also, when we can, catch our own fish, so there's kind of like an offset, right?
Yeah.
But if you go grocery shopping, we're about on par as we were in Australia.
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
average.
Some countries have been cheap, some have been very expensive. So.
Okay, entertainment. Now, in Australia, we kind of classified this into going out for meals, takeaways. We didn't really tend to do much of that, but our big expenses were, I used to go dancing and James used to do ice hockey, and obviously you have to pay for those things, so we included that into this entertainment. We spent on average about $400 a month on entertainment, give or take.
Yep.
And on the boat, we spent considerably less.
Especially now with the doggos haven't really turned us into more being bigger hermits, but we definitely don't entertain in the evenings as much as we used to with the dogs, mainly because they've been puppies. But we probably spend about an average of $100 a month at the moment. We live very, very close to the breadline because obviously our main income is derived from this channel. So we don't have the wages we had in Australia, so we have to live very carefully. And obviously one of the biggest ways for us to save money is not going out to restaurants. We don't spend a lot of money on alcohol. We don't pay for tours and things like that. You know, we just kind of make our own fun and occasionally treat ourselves out to a
Chicken Macca's.
Yeah, chicken McDonald's or a sociable beer once in a while. We're actually kind of boring in a way.
No, and our entertainment now is free.
Yes.
You know, you drop anchor somewhere and most of the time you're in a beautiful beach or you can go snorkeling, so all that kind of entertainment that we used to pay for to kind of get us out of the house and doing something now kind of comes naturally, and it's all right there in our backyard. So that's the big difference. Okay, up next is bureaucracy. In Australia, I'm sure we're forgetting stuff here, but we wrote it as $25 a month. And I feel like that's probably right.
Yeah.
If you take into account stuff like renewing your driver's license, renewing your passport,
which are like every 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, so it's not something that you would do monthly. That is a big difference because we kind of double that up on the boat.
Yeah, we do. Obviously, we are checking into all of these countries. We're exploring the world, and with those check-in and check-out processes comes costs. And for anybody that's done a little bit of traveling knows these costs vary wildly depending on where you go. Example is we're in the beautiful Bahamas, and it's very expensive. It's $100 a month for a cruising permit just to be here. Other countries have been free. All of Europe, nothing. It was absolutely free.
The US?
The US,
free.
You know, it depends on where you go. And the funny thing is some of the cheapest countries we've been to have been the most expensive to cruise.
Yeah.
Which has been really interesting. So as Nat said, that has doubled, and we kind of average that out to about $50 a month, because some months we won't spend anything, and then we'll have a big hit, you know, for the next 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So So, yeah.
Okay, final category, miscellaneous. So this in Australia would include anything that we've kind of missed. So we've put in there $100 a month. Could be more, could be less. We're kind of a little bit unsure on that one, but we've kind of just averaged it. And on the boat, we kind of feel like it's on par.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. The way we looked at that category for the boat was things like we need a new GoPro battery. You know, our batteries, all our camera gear takes an absolute beating from the weather. I think we're on our 3rd GoPro, which is actually, I think, not too bad for 4.5 years. Our big camera, little attachments for the camera gear. Laundry, so we factored laundry into that. We do a lot of laundry on the boat, but some places you just can't do that, so we go in and treat ourselves to a laundromat.
Okay, so total for our living costs in Australia per month works out to be $3,745 versus...
Wow, we're spending a lot. Versus the boat, we're spending about $1,660 a month. We feel that's a pretty fair representation of how much we spend. Sometimes it feels like when we were sort of looking at this number, we went, wow, it seems a little high. And then we also went, wow, it seems a little low. And it's because some months you spend nothing. And then other months, you know, you spent $5,000 because a bunch of stuff broke on the boat and we checked into a country and I don't know. It's when we look at the difference between what we spend per month on land versus what we spend per month on our boat, it's about $2,085. So it's a pretty big difference
Huge,
of what we're spending per month. And especially when you factor that over a 12-month period, you're looking at $25K. We solely live off of YouTube and our generous patrons, which isn't much. Versus when we were living in Australia, we both had full-time jobs, earning decent money. So you could argue that the difference in, you know, of $2,000 is probably negligible, and in fact you're probably making more money by being on land and living a more comfortable life.
We're definitely living on a budget, but what we're getting to see, the places we're getting to go to, the people we're meeting, the different cultures, like everything, the different food, like as a whole we're experiencing so much that you can't really put a price on that, can you?
No, it's Nat's 100% right. There's a value that's attached to what we're experiencing that you just can't get from living in a house on land. And to get that experience, you generally have to pay a lot of money to go out and do that. You know, you're spending thousands of dollars on flights, you're spending thousands of dollars on hotels, and you know.
And ultimately, we, you know, like a lot of people say, like, how do you do it? You know, how is it possible? And a lot of my responses tend to be that anybody can really do it, because we set out from Australia telling both our jobs that we would be back within 1 year. And 4.5 years down the track, here we are. And we really didn't think we would be able to keep this dream alive. And it is thanks to our patrons who help out massively.
Absolutely.
It's thanks to us working hard to achieve the dream, like make the dream a reality.
We busted our ass.
And it took a lot of saving for, at the very beginning, when we knew that we wanted to do this, we did really save and do a ton of research on buying a boat that we could afford outright.
Mm-hmm.
And not be in any type of debt or loan. So I think all of that combined has led us to 4.5 years of cruising.
Yep.
As liveaboards on our boat, now with 2 doggos. And you know, you go through hardships, you go through really cool times where everything's chill and everything's going well, but ultimately I think it's something that you can really do if you work hard for it.
Absolutely, anybody can do it. That's totally right. I love our life. As you can see,
And I
Kira
guess
loves it too.
Kira is a daddy's girl. Ultimately, should we sell our boat and go back to living in a house or buying a house?
Or should we keep on sailing?
What is it?
Oh, I want to keep sailing. Absolutely. As long. What about you?
That's the verdict. Yes.
Yeah.
Keep on sailing. And I think the doggos agree.
The doggos.
They don't even
love it.
know what house life is. They're actually getting a little bit of a treat here because James's parents are visiting.
Yeah.
And we're in this house with fans and air conditioning.
Yeah, air
So
conditioning. What's
they're
that?
probably like, what is this?
Yeah, it's a unanimous keep going from us. We've knocked over 25,000 nautical miles. We've crossed the Atlantic twice. We've done Europe. We've done the Caribbean.
I think it was 23 countries we're up to.
Yeah, 23 countries.
Pretty spectacular when you think about it like that. We
And
never really count, but the other day we were chatting to someone and they
Yeah.
were like, yeah, it's this many.
And we've only sailed a third of the world. Like
There's so much to see.
There's so much to see. Nat's right, that the Patron support, the YouTube support, this journey only keeps going because of you guys. If you want to help support us, we'd love it if you became a patron. You know, from the smallest amount just helps incredibly.
Even becoming a subscriber to our channel
Yeah.
helps more than you will know. But let us know if you have any other questions. Hopefully this video really helped with understanding how we kind of afford to live on a boat, what our different expenses are, and how that differentiates to living in a house in Australia.